State of the Chicago Treasurer's Office address. Serving the people of Chicago has always been a humbling experience, but never more than today. After we have experienced so much collective grief and trauma from the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic pain that it has caused, I am grateful that Chicago is on its way back, and I am confident that our future is bright. I'm here today to talk about the Office of the Treasurer, how we operate, and how we see Chicago's financial health after this year of turmoil. I'd like to start by discussing the role and mission of the Treasurer. As you know, for decades, the role of the Chicago City Treasurer was appointed first. But in 2019, the residents of Chicago had an opportunity to choose its own treasurer, and I am humbled each day by this opportunity. That election was critically important because it meant that the people of Chicago had a say in who manages their money, in who works to ensure that city employees have the retirement they were promised, and who chooses how and where and with whom our taxpayer dollars are invested. And more importantly, in whom they will trust to be their voice and to fight on their behalf in leveraging their money. I came to this elected position by way of another elected office, that of Illinois State Representative of the 10th District. So I have long had a desire to represent and serve. I first want to spend a few minutes elaborating on my primary role as Chicago's treasurer. Our office manages an investment portfolio of more than $8.5 billion. We have three primary mandates. Number one, manage the liquidity needs of the city, which means to manage our revenue and expenses to ensure that we can pay our bills on time. Number two, preserve our capital, which means to invest our money in such a way that we don't lose it. And number three, to maximize risk-adjusted returns, which means to make sure taxpayer dollars work for the people of Chicago. I want to spend most of my time today speaking about the latter, ensuring that taxpayer dollars work for them. In the Treasurer's Office, we literally see billions of dollars in revenue and expenses on a monthly basis. And our job is to manage numbers effectively, efficiently, and ethically. That's always a big job, but it has never been bigger than over this past year. During that time, we have successfully navigated the city's finances through an unprecedented pandemic, but it wasn't easy. When the pandemic started hitting us hard, around March of 2020, our city, state, and national economies almost completely shut down. As you all know, businesses closed their doors to customers to limit the spread of the virus. When schools closed and classes went online completely, families had to scramble to help their children, forcing them to use, in some instances, home devices to access classes, until programs were developed to provide this technology at no cost. Internet usage skyrocketed, causing families to need greater bandwidth that could support school and work from home, which was an added cost. Entire industry shut down. And then there was the massive loss of life, with numbers not seen since the pandemic of 1918, with so many suffering physical loss as well as financial loss. Tens of millions of people filed for unemployment all at once, and our economy suffered an extraordinary shock. Although Congress passed a historic stimulus package, many Americans lack bank access and did not have easy access to those payments. Well, in the Chicago Treasurer's Office, we immediately got to work, adapting to what was before us. First, we had to pivot our strategy to focus on liquidity. Just like people and families, our priority became having the cash to pay the bills and keep things running, and especially ensure that we had the cushion that we needed. We retained an outsized cash position and developed a short term maturity ladder to grow liquidity organically, just in case the economy got worse. Our second concern was making certain that the credit quality of our holdings was still appropriate given the new normal. Our investment policy dictates that we have a high quality, diversified, and liquid portfolio. And that strategy is ideally suited for the times of stress. Fortunately, interest rates were quickly cut to zero, and stimulus payments helped to boost the economy. At the end of 2020, when the vaccine began its rollout, we began to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Revenues are now beginning to return closer to pre-pandemic levels. And given the recent stimulus in the CARES Act and American Rescue Plan, we feel even more comfortable returning to a normalized investment strategy. I am proud to say that even during a pandemic, in the Chicago Treasurer's Office, we were able to generate investment income of more than $188 million in 2020. Now, what does that mean for the average resident? That's $188 million that the city does not need to obtain from its taxpayers. And these funds help to retain services. As Chicago Treasurer, my role of managing your money is something that may be familiar to you. But what you may not be familiar with is that I am the only elected official to sit on the boards of all 4 of the city's pension funds. And I take that aspect of my job very seriously because thousands of Chicagoans depend on the work that we do for their retirement. And taxpayers are relying on us to do the right thing. Last year, one of the most unpredictable times in both people's day-to-day lives as well as the financial markets. The year started off pretty normal, but by March, the reality of the pandemic had sunk in and the economy was grinding to a halt. In short order, equity prices plummeted and interest rates fell to zero. At the same time, the Federal Reserve took unprecedented action and intervened in the markets to provide liquidity to any stable entity in need of short-term loans. As the economy transitioned to remote working and remote socializing, and as some people started getting back to work, investment assets began to march upward. The investment community started to look past the current situation and envision where we would be after the pandemic, and optimism took hold. In the end, I am happy to announce that our pension fund returns grew between 10 to 15% in 2020, which was not only a successful year in a time of crisis, but a successful year even for normal times. While the financial returns are important, and I am proud of them, I look at my role far beyond that. Each day, I take actions to ensure that our investments benefit not just Wall Street executives, but our Black and Hispanic communities. Being a board member of all 4 of the city's pension funds is an enormous time commitment. But I make it my business to attend all board meetings because I know how important representation matters. We're pushing the uncomfortable conversations related to diversity and representation in money management because we feel that taxpayer dollars, especially that which will eventually go back into taxpayer pockets, should be managed by people who represent them. Despite the emergency nature of the pandemic and the fiduciary demands it puts on us as a board, we never lost sight of our civic responsibility to invest for impact. Now, private sector fund managers don't necessarily have this kind of responsibility, although I would argue that they should. But when you're elected by the people of Chicago to manage taxpayers' money from a city where the 3 top majority populations are Black, Hispanic, and white, you have a responsibility to invest in a way that creates impact in all communities. While investing pension fund dollars, we must push the envelope and seek diversity in doing so. This is where representation really matters. When you as taxpayers are not in the room, you must ask the question of who is speaking on your behalf. That is, and always has been, core to our mission. Now, here are some of the ways the Chicago Treasurer's Office has achieved that objective over the last year. And more than 57% of that was transacted with minority, women, disabled, and veteran-owned firms. I'd like to pause for a moment to let that number sink in. More than 57%. It is extraordinary, particularly in an industry in which those groups are vastly underrepresented. Let's take a moment to talk about that industry, the financial service industry, and its lack of representation. A 2019 study by Forbes magazine reports that of $69 trillion managed by the U.S. asset management industry, 98.7% was managed by firms that were not minorities. Let that sink in. 98.7% ownership of $69 trillion that does not include minority ownership. Wow. So I told our team, let's roll up our sleeves in the Chicago Treasurer's Office to increase diversity where we can. Which leads me to version 2.0 of our diversity scorecard for broker-dealers. For those that are not familiar with our diversity scorecard, basically, we are keeping score. We evaluate a potential broker-dealer on their diversity, equity, inclusion, and corporate social responsibility, along with their investment capabilities. This scorecard is the first of its kind of anything we have heard of. Matter of fact, we receive calls from other municipalities all across the country inquiring of how we score these companies that we do business with. When we decide who the Treasurer's Office will do business with, we're weighing diversity, equity, inclusion, and corporate social responsibility just as much as we weigh their performance. That approach ensures that we are aligned with the most forward-thinking firms And those firms understand the importance of having a diverse workforce. Now, some ask, has this scorecard led to any changes? The answer is yes. Since first implementing this scorecard, we have moved from 58 approved counterparties to 28 with our latest selection. Keeping in the vein of diversity and equity, another initiative that is critically important for the financial empowerment of Chicago's residents is an initiative announced in June of last year, the creation of the Advancing Equity in Banking Commission, in partnership with Illinois State Treasurer Michael Ferricks. Advancing Equity in Banking Commission is a commission of major banking CEOs who recognize that systemic racism and exclusion of Black and Brown Chicagoans and Illinoisans still, unfortunately, exist. They stood up and said, "This is not okay, and we want to do something about it." These CEOs have spent the last year examining issues like lending disparities and lack of representation. Now, as with any sort of systemic change, it has not been easy, nor has it been quick. But we have ignited necessary, overdue discussions and actions around a subject that is not going away. Now, later this month, I look forward to sharing our one-year progress on the Advancing Equity in Banking Commission. The one-year anniversary will take place virtually on June 18th. And we're excited to share the successes that our participating Banking Commission members have achieved in helping to eliminate racism while changing the landscape of banking. Now, we chose this day for our commission to meet again to commemorate Juneteenth, the day enslaved people in Texas heard that they were free 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. So be on the lookout for more information regarding this Juneteenth event. A new initiative that the Chicago Treasurer's Office proposed this past March, in partnership with the Comptroller and City Council, was the creation of a municipal depository task force, which would examine the process of selecting the municipal depositories that the Treasurer's Office works with. I really want to take a moment to talk about this task force because it is going to be very important for residents. So many times, we hear residents saying that they see money going out, but never see it being returned. With the city's portfolio of over $8.5 billion, a portion of those funds remain in banking institutions. Those institutions are what we call municipal depositories. We want to make certain that our process of selecting those banking institutions is aligned with the values of Chicago residents. Our goal is to dramatically streamline a 70-year-old process, and in doing so, inject equity by removing barriers for smaller community-based financial institutions like credit unions and smaller banks. Currently, the process to become a municipal depository is so cumbersome that it's almost impossible for smaller institutions to apply. Be on the lookout for more information coming later this year regarding the structure and strategic alignment of this task force. As Chicago Treasurer, by city's ordinance, I am also the chairman of the Chicago Community Catalyst Fund. Over the past year, at a time when needed most, we were able to provide more than 700 loans to our city's small businesses that were struggling to stay afloat during the worst financial crisis of our time. As chairman of the Catalyst Fund, I was proud to partner with Mayor Lightfoot to invest in the Small Business Resiliency Fund. This fund was established to provide financial relief to Chicago businesses that have been affected by COVID-19. The fund's targeted investments in Chicago's communities is to provide investments to neighborhoods where opportunities for investments are scarce. The fund is an investment vehicle designed to provide sustainable economic development in underserved neighborhoods. We have set the stage for addressing the historical lack of access to capital that plagues so many businesses and communities in Chicago. This money was a lifeline to small businesses, which pay rent, payroll, and other operating expenses. We invested through an equity lens into businesses like childcare, bakeries, small business consultancies, beauty salons, and so much more. Of these loans, 27% went to businesses on the west side and 23% on the south side. 44% were Black owned and nearly 30% were woman owned. As you can see, we have been intentional in looking at everything through the eyes of Chicago residents, intentional about equity. Next, I'd like to share what we have done over the last year to create impact and make financial resources available to our residents. From our vaccinated vantage point, it's like a different world out there, but it's difficult to understate the level of fear and uncertainty that individuals and families were facing just a year ago. As I stated earlier, thousands were dying and many residents lost their incomes overnight. On top of the deadly virus that was tearing through our communities, disproportionately, by the way, killing Black and Brown Americans, people were out of work with no hope in sight, not sure how to pay their rent or mortgage, losing their health insurance, and so much more. And then in May 2020, we all watched, feeling helpless, as Mr. George Floyd was killed. And our country exploded into protest that in some cases led to even further loss of income through property damage. Part of my role as treasurer is to help Chicagoans achieve financial stability, and that has never been more urgent than during this pandemic. We launched a number of virtual initiatives designed to deliver useful information and resources directly to Chicagoans. We launched a new weekly webinar, Money Mondays with Melissa, which featured notable guests on topics like rent and mortgage relief, grants and loans, keeping your credit history, small business assistance, tax assistance, and much more. We packed our weekly newsletter with links to available relief funds for small businesses and families and kept people informed about application deadlines. We closed 2020 with a one-day financial economic empowerment summit entitled Building Wealth Today for Tomorrow, to remind people that yes, this pandemic will end and you do have a financial future ahead of you. The summit provided our residents with information on access to capital, financial planning, and credit building seminars, keys to home ownership, and wealth building opportunities. In April of this year, we participated in Money Smart Week, a program launched by the Federal Reserve by hosting a week of financial empowerment events with resources focused on building generational wealth, housing and rental assistance, paying for college, the importance of banking, and so much more. One of the most valuable initiatives to launch within the Chicago Treasurer's Office at the beginning of this year included the Hope Inside Partnership with Operation Hope, the largest nonprofit provider of financial literacy and economic empowerment services. Let me take just a moment to explain why we partnered to offer this program. If you were born into a family of means, the financial literacy is probably one of your native languages. But if you grew up in an underserved community or a family that struggled to have enough, you may have never learned the language of money. And unfortunately, it is not taught enough in our schools. Operation Hope works to bridge that gap and disrupt poverty by giving people a sense of inclusion and the feeling of dignity that comes with knowing how to build a financially secure future. Through the Hope Inside initiative, we have launched a year-long program that will offer credit and money management resources to Chicagoans for free. I cannot overstate how groundbreaking that is. These are the kinds of programs that people usually pay for. And if you're familiar with them, you know that they can be expensive. But we are offering them through the Chicago Treasurer's Office 100% free to Chicagoans. In these workshops, Chicagoans will be able to create a budget, learn to understand and fix errors on their credit reports, and start planning for home ownership. In the credit coaching sessions, which is a free one-on-one session with a counselor, residents will make plans for getting out of debt and raising their credit scores. With this partnership, we have launched the 700 Credit Score Initiative, where residents will have the opportunity to receive 18 months of continuous counseling that can raise their credit scores by 120 points, which is huge. Again, free to Chicago's residents. For those who have struggled with obtaining credit, you know that 120 points can mean the difference between being declined or approved for a mortgage, receiving a better monthly payment on a vehicle, and much more. To date, this program has provided over 900 financial empowerment services, including credit counseling, enrollments, bank referrals, credit and money management workshops, disaster preparedness workshops, and more. This program has the power to significantly transform lives and achieve our goals of helping residents build generational wealth. And I am thrilled that we are able to make it available free to Chicagoans. I strongly encourage any Chicagoan who is interested in taking this step to visit our website at chicagocitytreasurer.com or reach out to our office for more information at 312-744-3356. The last topic that I will speak on today is our consistent and intentional work that we are doing in encouraging young people to pursue careers in the financial service industry. Our ongoing youth impact within the Chicago Treasurer's Office includes scholarship opportunities during Black History Month and Hispanic Heritage Month in partnership with Chicago Public Schools. And we certainly could not have done this without our partnership with BMO Harris Bank. Ongoing summer internship opportunities within the Treasurer's Office with One Summer Chicago and Chicago State University, a predominantly Black and Brown institution. Virtual programming on the ever-growing field of fintech through panel discussions and youth summits. Partnerships with local organizations such as Bank on Chicago, the Greenwood Project, AM Money, and much more. And because we feel so strongly about helping Chicagoans become more financially secure, On September 23rd of this year, the Chicago Treasurer's Office will continue our collaboration with Operation Hope for a one-day financial summit entitled Building Wealth Today for Tomorrow, designed to assist residents with financial information on building generational wealth for themselves and for their families. Finally, we are so excited to announce a new initiative that we are developing to connect Chicago's leading candidates with the financial services industry through the first annual Chicago Treasurers Financial Services Career Fair, in partnership with the Chicago Cook Workforce, which will take place virtually on October 14th. This career fair will offer entry, mid, and senior level positions, as well as internship opportunities to help Chicagoans jumpstart their career. There's a saying that a child cannot be what a child cannot see. So we're creating this career fair to ensure that young people can see not only other people that look like them in the financial service industry, but they can actually envision themselves in those careers and find a path to getting there. I cannot tell you how many rooms I sit in where no one else looks like me. And when I ask the question on the lack of diversity, some companies respond that they cannot find any diverse candidates. Well, guess what? We are going to bring those diverse candidates to them. Youth from the South and West sides of Chicago, attending inner city colleges and universities, should have the same access to well-paying careers as others. We want to provide opportunities to young people that they have not previously been afforded. If I want to see diversity, equity, and inclusion in the financial service industry, I have to start with what I am able to do in the role that I am in. In leading up to the career fair, the Treasurer's Office will host multiple job preparedness workshops to help candidates prepare with resume updates, virtual interviewing tips, and other information on careers in investment banking, asset management, insurance brokers, accounting, and so much more. As we look ahead to 2022, we have a lot of ambitious goals. Now that the economy is recovering, more Americans are getting vaccinated and returning to work, we are anticipating a smoother financial picture than we experienced in 2020. It has been an incredibly challenging year. And there were times when I think every American, if not every person around the planet, felt like the rug had been pulled out from under their feet. But I am proud to say that your Chicago Treasurer's Office not only rose to the occasion, but thrived in the face of adversity and extended a hand many times over to those who needed it most. I encourage you to stay in touch with our office's initiatives through our website, chicagocitytreasurer.com, our newsletter, and follow us on our social media channels. I thank you for your time today, and I look forward to continuing to engage with the wonderful, resilient people of Chicago who give me hope each and every day. Thank you for this humbling experience.